believe it's appropriate that we come here today to Town Hall to tell you of an odyssey which started 5 years ago and surely will involve every one of you, eventually all men everywhere. And as this involvement grows, know for a fact that the world will never again be the same. Now I'm very proud to introduce to you a young man who made this happen for us here today. It should be pointed out that he's not the only one. There are others who have produced such a device that works, produces more energy than it uses. So the technology cannot be stopped. It's going on all over the world. However, his genius, I feel, will change the way the world works. His decision to make this outgrowth of insight a gift to mankind speaks for himself. Words really do not say it. And presenting to you Mr. John C. Bedini. John? John will show you a crude but effective prototype of the future. John is one of the first involved in one of the most exciting events of our time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank Town Hall today for inviting me here today. And what I want to do is not get into anything technical with the machine, but explain to you in simple principles how the machine operates. There, I think we can take the cover off it. See, I think it's very good. What we have is a bank of storage batteries down there that are from World War II. It is impossible to charge those batteries with a conventional charger because this type of machinery does not allow that, because the energy which it is using actually changes these batteries to a different form. The machine the reason that we have the motor here is to give you the illusion that we have to have something to spin this machine. In the end, this machine does not need this motor, and it does run itself. This is a very crude machine. The wire going to the load is about as thin as your hair. Therefore, a baby could operate this kind of power without getting electrocuted. I will short out the machine so that you can see it accelerate. But the main points of this machine are that this is what they call a gravity stress converter. And what I mean by that is there are gravity fields surrounding the Earth. They hold you here. What we do is cap a little bit about that and convert it into usable electrical energy.
John, you know, we've heard quite a bit about a thing called a Kromreya generator.
Mm-hmm.
This has happened way back 10, 20 years, and I don't believe it's anything to do with the monopole motor. So maybe you'd like to talk about the
No, there's quite a difference between the two motors, and if I can get around to the blackboard, I'll just put a simplified drawing of the Kromreya converter up. Now, the Kromreya converter is basically a flux gate generator, and you can see here that if you come around here, you can see here that the armature is the thing that's spinning in between these gates. See, it's in a magnetic lock here. See, it doesn't want to leave the lock.
So this is a Kromreya generator?
Yes, this is a Kromreya generator.
And this is one that worked?
One that worked very well and is wound correctly. Now, a Kromreya generator is basically made up like this. So notice right away, it's a north pole here, a south pole here, a north pole here, and a south pole here. And what's in between here is an iron bar, and an iron bar here, and then a non-magnetic shaft. And I must stress this to everybody. This is a non-magnetic shaft, meaning that the shaft is aluminum, it's brass, or it's stainless steel non-magnetic. And it's the only way that you can get this generator to work correctly. So what's on the shaft in the center here are two slip rings. And these are for brushes. So we'll just draw a little brush here and a wire out. And a little brush here and a wire out. And the coil is made up where the coil comes in this way and stops, and then comes in this way, and then see its series down to the next coil, stops, comes out and goes to this slip ring. So it's 4 independent coils, meaning that this is one pole, this is one pole, but it's on the same iron bar. This is a coil, this is a coil, this is a coil, and this is a coil. And these two are series. It's a series arrangement, see it? So basically what happens is this is completely charged. The magnetic flux has got these in a complete shorted condition.
What does that mean, shorted condition?
Well, it means that it's zero.
Okay.
It's zero in here. Zero in here. In other words, the magnetic field's completely contained. And when you turn this rotor, you're going to break the magnetic lock and it's going to discharge. So it's in a charged condition right now. And the minute that the rotor breaks this lock, it discharges in the rotor, which is this portion right here. Okay, so the problem with the patent was that the problem with the Kromreya patent on this...
Whose patent was it?
Kromreya. Raymond Kromreya.
And who is Raymond Kromreya?
He was the inventor of this Kromreya converter.
And he...
I don't have the patent, so I can't tell you the exact year, but it's way out of date.
Was this the guy that was a professor?
Yes, at the university, and there's quite an interesting story to this guy because I wanted to rebuild the thing, and so I made a long distance call. I found the number through a friend, and I called, and the person at the other end of the phone, who said that it was his wife, said to me on the phone, "I don't give a damn what you do with it." So I just took it to mean that nobody cared. So I rebuilt the whole machine and found all the problems with the coil, with the arrangement, so that it worked correctly when we got down. And one of the little unique features of the Kromreya converter is that under load it accelerates, so that the current actually goes down instead of upward. And so I'll get a current meter in line real quick here, so bear with me just a second. I'll just get something that's close here. And of course we're not running the machine right at this instant, But I'm showing you that the 0 amps is here, and this could be as high as 30 here and 60 over here. So I'm just putting a meter that we can get an indication on there. So anyway, there was some mysterious things behind this, in that, why did it never get out into the marketplace? It was so efficient. That's because 120% is, yes, it's over unity, but the problem is it's not at an industrial level. For something to be considered really free energy device, it has to be 300% or over.
And you know this how?
I know this how because I was told this by the scientists who work for government laboratories. So, having a device that's COP1 is not going to get you on the list, because you have to have a COP of, say, 3 to 4.
Or above.
Or above.
Yeah.
And otherwise, it's just like they told Bruce De Palma, if it would have been over unity, we would have just locked up the whole lab. So it has to be at this level. So the max we could get out of this machine here would be 180%, which is damn good, because you can do along with that. You can recharge its batteries, you put it back to its battery, everything, without affecting the machine whatsoever. So let's go ahead and run this machine real quick, and so you can see what it sounds like, and we'll get into a little bit behind this. Now, one other thing before we do this is I'm going to make this point that in this machine, what we have drawn here, the converter would be depicted like this with 2 lines, and then out to your loads. Which are lights. Now, one of the ways to test this machine, this G field, we call it a G field because it stresses the gravity field. And when this is running, the pole pieces can get hot, but it'll be blowing out cold air because it's sort of like a magnetic refrigeration when this is taking place. So the machine doesn't need any kind of cooling, and it doesn't need any kind of really special pole pieces in here because they can take that. The point is, we'll be running at about 180% when we short this machine down. And we can run some light bulbs if you want to run a light bulb. It's not going to run it very bright because it's not that high voltage. But let's go ahead and run it and show them for a second. You can see our current there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to short the machine out. And of course you can hear it speed up. Now what we'll do is tell it to go back across its battery. And it speeds up. Okay. Of course this isn't very sensitive, but it actually moved back a little bit there, see? Yeah. Then we can charge this other battery. And now feel the air here. Right here. Right. It's going to get colder. It's also charging this battery really good right now.
So the point being is it's putting out cold air.
Yeah.
It's cooling the air.
Yeah. Look where it's got this battery. And watch when I take it off. Look at the battery. It bounces right up to 13 volts. Now, feel the air now here, right here. Yeah, watch. Now feel the pole piece in there. The end of the pole piece. This end. The end. It's hot.
Hot. Yeah, it's quite hot. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So
So where's the cold coming from?
the negative energy that it's sucking from the vacuum, because the G field the cold air is coming from the negative end, in that the G field creates a vortex. When it breaks this magnetic lock, now the mistake that everybody makes with a G-field generator or a Kromreya converter is that when you tell them, they think that it doesn't make any difference here, that this is a non-magnetic shaft, but it's stated in the patent, and it's been stated over 250 times by me that this shaft has to be a non-magnetic material, because if this is a magnetic material, then the flux goes like this.
Oh yeah.
And we don't want the flux to go like that, because it's not a standard transformer. You have a rotating flux gate here. And these are coils, remember. And we want the flux like this. We want it to go in this direction the first time, and back the other direction when it rotates over.
What do you mean when it rotates over?
Well, when this rotates over, this south, because right now this is the way it is. This rotates over, this is forced into a reverse pole situation where these totally reverse. In other words, the south side here now becomes the north side, and the north side here now becomes the south side, because it's rotating this direction. It's rotating this direction. So once we charge in this condition, we want to force it to discharge and then recharge very quickly in the other condition.
So although the spinning is continuing, spinning in the same direction?
Yes,
Okay.
continuously in the same direction.
Right.
Now, what's actually happening here is, remember, these magnetic, it's 0 here, it's 0 here, it's 0 here, and it's 0 here. This is the blotch wall, here, and here, and here. See? Right straight through the non-magnetic shaft.
Okay.
Otherwise, the blotch wall moves over here, which is incorrect. So we could say this is the hidden secret of the Kromreya converter, which is no hidden secret at all if you understand the machine. We're not trying to make anything a secret here. We're trying to tell you how to construct it correctly if you're going to do it. So
that
remember,
really is the crux of the matter right there.
Yes. Once again, remember what I said with the coil. You want the energy to be sucked in through this moving gate, the blotch wall. Okay, and then you have the same thing this way. So you're forcing 4 blotch walls. One up here, one here, one up here, and one here.
What do you mean you're forcing 4
You're
blotch walls?
forcing 4 of them to pump.
Where are the 4? I mean,
4 poles.
okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Just point them out again on the blackboard. Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Just put your finger on them again. Can you notice?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, right,
Okay?
right.
You're forcing 4 of them to pump, sucking in their energy in and expelling energy. And you expel the energy through the coils and then out to the contacts. Now, you see this energy, right, in the system is basically at a 0 potential, which means that if you relieve it, it's got to speed up. So let's do this again. There's no resistance then. So here, I'm going to short the machine out, right? And it's going to get cold here because the energy, it has to output the cold energy, the negative energy. And you can feel it right out here, Tony. It's getting colder. See? It's outputting cold energy only in 4 corners. Feel. Over here, over here, over here, and over here. But if we turn it off now, and you touch that pole that's doing it, it's warm.
Yeah, it's hot, very hot.
Right. So you see that the normal EM energy is a hot energy and the negative energy is a cold energy.
So if you ran that for a while, would it burn up the center?
No,
No?
no, it's just going to speed up and it stays shorted. It's not going to melt any wires. Now here's an example. You see it charge the battery. The energy is safe. I'm touching it. Notice that. Speeds up. Look at the battery. Pushing the battery right up. Now, is there any current there? That's the next question, right? Here. I'll disconnect the battery. I'll disconnect the wires, and I'll take one little wire, that size, right there. Can you see that little wire? Watch. There's no heat. Not burning that little wire. I'll do it up here. I'll take that little wire. Watch the spark. No current. I'll even hold the wire. There's no current.
Is it cold or just normal temperature?
Just room temperature. There you go. But look here. So we'll put it back. Pretty quick, isn't it? 18. Building the battery. Yes. What's there, right? You want to see what's there? We'll take 100-watt light bulb. That's what's above the battery. And look, feel the light here. It's hot. Come and feel the light. Oh, you can't, Pat. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's warm.
But you have the cables and nothing's warm. See? And it's warm just on the side there. On that one spot.
Why is that?
Negative energy forms a dot inside the light bulbs, just in a certain spot. It's where my finger was.
Oh, yeah.
So the energy's going right to my finger, and that's where the warm spot's going to be.
So it's just in one spot. When you're using negative energy.
Yeah, it follows. Yes. The same more Ray talked about the same thing with one spot on the top of the light bulb. See, otherwise this machine can just, you can put it back to its own batteries. See, you got to get them right, but you can put it back to its own batteries. See? No change. Look. Look here. See, it's being sucked out right here, across these poles. But go over here, brighter. Listen to the machine, speeding up. So we saw there's no current in that little wire, right? All right. Okay, this takes 65 watts to light this light. And what we're going to do, see? Barely any current there. And the machine speeds up and adjusts to the load of the light. See? But meanwhile, it's pumping out cold energy, right? Doesn't care what you do with it. Does it go through there? See the impedance? That's across the battery. Right? See what it did? Doesn't care. And that's what's known as a Kromreya converter.
Noisy.
Very noisy machine. Specially built. Non-magnetic shaft through the center. And there's a long story behind this. The reason that you don't see these out there, that we never continue to build anymore after that. And you can see that normal electricity is a hot thing here, Tony. If you come over here and touch this motor. That's the normal.
Right, right.
And the pole's the normal down here. But the negative is the cold energy.
Right.
And see, the battery is, come and feel this battery is cold.
You do it. I'm done.
Yeah, the battery's really cold.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cold.
All right, I have to see it. Oh, yeah.
You bet.
Yeah.
So you got the permission from the
I got the permission,
permission.
if it was his wife.
if it was his wife, or and anyway, you went ahead and
I went ahead and developed it and found all the problems with it and worked out the 4 poles and worked out that if you were really gonna build this machine, I mean, we went through a lot of trouble to build this machine, and we found out it's just basically an impedance problem of this coil adding another coil like this on the rotors. Then you cut the impedance by 3. These happen to be single coil, so you'd have 3 here. And 3 here. And 3 here. And everything worked out in 3s. And that 3 would come down to this 3. Just like you see it here. And so if this was 3 ohms, right, when you got down here, right, you'd have 0 ohms.
Right.
You see? So 0, 0, and actually not 0, so about 4.4, and 0.4, 0.4, which is not a very big impedance at all. But since it's buck boost inside here,
Since it's what?
buck boost, meaning it's going one way 1 minute and one way the next minute, and it keeps doing that, right? What happens is as these pole pieces heat, the negative energy that you're feeling in cold is in this vortex. It's being blown out of the machine by the pole pieces right at this vortex. And that's what you're feeling is cold. The energy coming out of the machine is cold electricity because the battery got cold and the light got hot.
Except for that one spot.
Yeah, except for the one spot. Just the one spot on the light got hot.
Yeah.
And if you shorted out the wires here to a little wire that's smaller than your hair, you had no current there at all. You couldn't even burn the wire up if you had to. That's why it was such a safe electricity for generating power for a house. But that wasn't going to be allowed because it was already at 180%. Okay? And fixing the machine up with, you could take it easily to 350.
By doing what?
By making the geometry of the coils on 3s like I've shown you. You could easily go to 350.
So you were experimenting with it and you got one up to 350.
Yeah, and then mysteriously, fights started to happen in the machine company. And that's what ended the production of the G-field generator. Otherwise,
You mean in your
well, we built probably 150 of these generators as models. We sent them out. Most of them ended up on fireplace mantles as a talkative piece, and nobody ever knew what it was. Of course, John Bedini knew what it was because he said that it belonged as a part on a spaceship. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what does he mean by that? What is that? You know, where does it go on the spaceship, John? You know, and he would never say, but mysteriously, John Bedini was there at the time. And mysteriously, the company that was making this for me fell apart. So I was like out in the cold. So I have the only probably remaining model. Tom Bearden has a model. Steve Worst sold out a bigger model to some wind farm, and who knows if they're using it or not using it. And 12 went to M.I.T, which were put in the back room and could never be studied. They bought 12 of them up when there were only 12 left.
So MIT actually paid you hard cash
$500 a piece.
and bought 12 of these
Bought
generators,
12 of those generators.
which were all over Unity.
Close to.
Yeah. And that was that for them.
That was that. We also made a flywheel, which is this flywheel here, that actually went on another one, and the flywheel stops the cogging.
Stops the what?
Cogging, because there's no flywheel here.
Right.
And the magnetic lock makes it jerk around.
Right.
Tick, 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 right. And once you get it up to speed with the flywheel, it's a smooth running machine, doesn't make that noise.
And does it increase the over unity at all?
No, it doesn't.
It just mechanically, it just makes
mechanically makes it
more aesthetic.
Yes.
And quieter.
And quieter.
Yeah. And Steve Worth, of course, machined this one, the 4-pole, which has twice the output of the regular Kromreya converter of that size. And as you could see, you can short it out, you can do whatever you have to do with it. It'll charge batteries really quick, and it does it cold. It's still cold, you know, so.
So it's okay to charge batteries quickly.
And by the way, this was that dead battery that we depleted.
Okay.
And
Very bright.
Yeah.
Very, very bright.
and that's cold electricity. See, it's just hot here, like a normal light. But look, we're just using this little clip lead, and it's at room temperature.
So will that also get hot where your thumb was?
No. This is normal electricity now.
Okay.
But we charged it with negative electricity.
Okay.
And this is that battery that we totally depleted.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty bright.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Neat shades.
And there's no way that you saw me light those lights.
Right.
You saw what this was putting in as far as light goes.
Right.
And it could barely light this.
Although it got brighter as time went on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say you got one up to, I think, about 380%.
300 and about over 300.
Over 300. Could you have gotten it more if you'd kept experimenting with it?
Probably max on that mechanical machine would have been around maybe 400%. Because of the way the way it has to rotate.
Right.
And it was impossible to make an electrical circuit that represented it. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It had to be mechanical. And like I said, when my discussions came up about John Sajeka kept coming around. Now mind you, John Sajeka, the John Sajeka files are probably the most sought after his death in the world. I mean, people ask, well, what happened to the big red schoolhouse where everything that was suppressed was in there? Well, there's some things in those booklets like, how about your electric car, people? You've never seen the electric car that used a wedge of aluminum to power itself down the road for 300 or 400 miles. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that people already know about, but we're talking about the ones like the battery that's aluminum. That they already had these electric cars years ago, where you could go into a gas station and replace. And what the battery was something that was shaped like this. Sort of like this. And all you did was put this wedge of aluminum in here, and it used this wedge of aluminum for electricity. It made electricity from this wedge, and that powered your electric car for 300-400 miles. And when you went into the next service station, they had it all set up. And when you went into the next service station, there was nothing really left here. And they just inserted another wedge and you took off. You paid for that wedge and away you went.
And this is when, in the 1950s?
Oh, I have no idea because
yeah.
I remember going through the files and it said something. There was a note on the side of it that said suppress it or whatever.
So
it was suppressed. And then there were things like detecting cancer with a vacuum tube voltmeter, which worked very well. And there were things like ESP machines, and the whole book is there, you know, and there's little side notes on certain things that said, like, take this one as an example. A horseshoe magnet North Pole and South Pole, right? We know that there's a normal horseshoe magnet. Well, how many people know that if you had a special tube made of glass that went down here, it was sort of shaped like this, and it was split except for a little point down here. So the tube sort of looked like this, and this is filled with water. And just by doing that, out of this side comes oxygen, and out of this side comes hydrogen. How many people know that? That also, where did that go? That's also in these files. So there are plenty of things that John Bedini allowed me to copy because he was interested in getting at the G field and stopping that from getting out there, because this was on national radio, and it was shown at the town hall meeting, lighting light bulb after light bulb.
Is that the video that?
Yes.
Okay.
And Bill Jenkins was the narrator.
Yeah, we have that. We'll be showing that.
Yeah, so it actually was done. Steve Worth's standing there, and I'm standing there, and Bill Jenkins is standing there. But you don't find John Bedini because he didn't show up in those public meetings like that. And the funny thing is how many other things were suppressed, and was this part of some spacecraft, as he claimed? I have no idea. But I just want to make it known, and we're documenting as much as we can on all this for the younger generation coming up that might be interested in making this.
Well, eventually we'll have no choice.
Mm-hmm. So that's about what I can say at this time. I just look forward in the future to doing a little bit more on it. We should know all this. You know, there's no secret here. The one thing I want to let everybody know is I hate secrets.
Yes.
I mean, I'm showing you the machines in black and white. They're right here in front of you. Come and try this yourself. You know, or you can build this machine back here and do it yourself. But
It seems that,
there's no secrets.
Yeah, and it seems like it's almost magical.
Well, yeah, you see, what's not understood, it's mystical. If you don't understand the technology, well, then you're saying the guy's a wizard. He's a magician back there, and he's performing tricks. But I'm not performing any tricks.
Well, the problem is a lot of the kids coming up, what they're taught in the schools, they're led to believe that everything is pretty much understood. So they don't realize there are these gaping holes that are not even touched on.
Well, it's like a god, in a way. I look at it as like a god. If I fly into Africa in an airplane, and this was a famous story by Bedini, if I fly into Africa in an airplane in a village that never has seen anything, and I land, they're going to fall to their knees and worship me. If I show them a flashlight, they're going to run. That's what you have here. So, believe me when I tell you, there's nothing supernatural about this. There's no big secrets. It's all normal physics that's been kept away from the common person. So he doesn't understand it. So therefore he's skeptical, and he says, that can't work. But have you tried it? No. Why would I try it? It doesn't work. So I'm happy to demonstrate the machines and share the technology with you. Which was Steve Worth's brother-in-law. He was running all the machines. He was making all the pieces and the parts. And this guy went berserk on him.
Wow.
Nuts. How can you have him go nuts? Only after Sajaka's been there? How could the guy go nuts? Unless Sajaka had something, some machine, and he did have machines. So, you didn't goof around with him. No, but he was the kind of guy, Pat, that would, he'd come around and he'd have 2 horseshoes. Hi, John. How you doing, John? Let's go. Let's go have a piece of pie. He'd go.
What were the horseshoes about?
He had those interlocking
Oh,
horseshoes.
yeah, yeah.
You know, it was a game he played all the time. Something he thought everybody was interested in. They'd be interested in it because he was a farmer anyway.
From Iowa.
Well, yeah, he was from Iowa, but a CIA farmer probably.
Yeah.
And I used to tease him about that all the time. And it's funny that John Sajaka took a liking to me. And of course, then one day he brought over a notebook and he says, he says, here, look at this. And so I went through the notebook. And he says, I said, can I copy some of this? He says, you got an hour. And he meant it. Because exactly when an hour was up, he says, that's it. Can't copy no more. And he took the notebook and went away. He just threw the notebook like this. Have a look at that. And here I am looking at all this stuff in this notebook like this. And I'm going, never seen that. That's interesting. I think I'll build that. No, you won't. I said, can I copy that? Yeah, you got an hour. And then pretty soon it was 2 notebooks, and 3 notebooks, and 4 notebooks, and 5 notebooks, and 6 notebooks. And I says, I got to buy a copy machine to copy all that. And he said, well, then get one of those IBM. Just call up IBM and get one of those IBM machines. Because they got a special on them right now, and they're this big, and they sort and they do all kinds of things, right? So I called up and I ordered the copy machine, and I didn't have a cent to my name. They brought it out on trial, right? And they gave me 2 weeks to try it out. Right? And that's probably why this guy said it, right? And so he brought over all the notebooks, and he says, I don't have to leave till 3:30. He says, so start copying. Well, the first ream of paper went out, and the second ream of paper went out, the third ream of paper went out, 4th ream, 5th ream, 6th ream, 7th ream, 8th ream, 9th ream. Pretty soon the machine was saying service on it. And he says, well, just call him up and tell him it's defective. Typical CIA government guy, right? You know, use everybody else's money. Forget the rest. Right? So I called him up and they brought another machine out. I finished off, gave him back the machine, said thank you very much. And that was it. And that was what he did. You know, when he said he filled his gas tank full of water and just dropped some catalyst in it, he wasn't kidding. He had the bottle in his pocket. It's right there with the bottle in his pocket. He goes, watch this. Where's the guard nose? Now, what kind of guy would take a guard nose from the front of your shop, walk over to the tank and fill the tank with water, and then get in and start the truck and go? What else was suppressed? But I was fortunate enough, and I got to thank him to this day, you know, for sharing what little bit of information he did share with me, because it got me into my creative mode to where I wanted to learn more and more about all this stuff. And so Tom Bearden's been a blessing as far as this, because Tom Bearden's right and the people haven't figured out he's not right yet. And I have pity for all of them in the end, because you're going to want to know what this is. You're going to want to know how to generate your energy, because this stuff has been suppressed for years. And so I would suggest that anybody that's viewing this, that you better pay attention to what Tom Bearden's saying, because the man is right. This proves it. All this technology proves it, that what Tom Bearden's talking about does exist, because that battery is still cold. Once the energy is in place, you may not be able to measure it, but believe me, you have senses that can tell.
Yeah. And the light comes on to show you
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
And the light comes on to show you things, because there's no meter that can measure negative energy. This cannot measure anything negative. This meter here can only measure the waste product.
Can you conceive in your mind of what a meter would look like to measure it in 50 years or whatever it is?
Yes, it won't look anything like this.
Right.
It'll be a differential type meter.
Okay.
And it'll work more on the way your thoughts work.
Mm.
It'll work with that energy level. It won't work.
It won't be mechanical in any
It'll
way.
be
Yeah.
almost like,
More as a parallel processor than
yeah, more, right, exactly. And because you can feel when an energy's hot, and you can feel when an energy is cold. And definitely, if something's hot and it's spinning around, it blows out hot air, right? Well, this was spinning around and was blowing out cold air. So they're right there. That just shoots the whole thing down. And we finally figured out what it was, and I drew it on the blackboard, and you have that. But Sajeka was a different guy, because he it's kind of hard to even tell the stories. You know, was a happy-go-lucky guy, but when you got him mad, he'd bug you, which he did to me. Mm-hmm. And that's the only reason I wasn't friends with him after that, was because he put a bug in my shop and was listening to everything that we were doing. Because he thought that I was letting what he told me out.
So how did he die in the end?
He died of cancer. He chewed. Tobacco chew. And I think that's what it was. And all his machines couldn't cure him. He was that far gone. And then in the end, I know for a fact if I was in his position with the laboratory that he had, with the files that he had, I'd probably destroy things. Myself, I'm just saying, if I was in his shoes. Myself, come and get it, world. Good luck at it. You know, which we'll make sure that it goes to the right place when that happens. But outside of that, that was John Sajeka. And he had a bit of information on everything. He knew about everything. He couldn't talk about one thing that he didn't know about. You know, like the crystals, and he knew exactly because he was there while it was being done. So we don't really know what part of the organization he worked for, but we knew that he was there to watch what we were doing with us. And when we got it to a certain point where it was blowing out cold air, and it was, you could hold the wires like that and everything, that was it. Gone. And he always said this was part of a space drive of some type. Went on a spaceship and did something. It was part of a spaceship. So, what spaceship?
Yeah.
Where? Whose?
Great. Well, we certainly appreciate it, John, and we look forward to future episodes in this series. Excellent. Excellent.
I hate the way you said that.
What?
That last thing, it sounded really pandering.
Well, I can,
You can take that
Yeah,
out.
I know.
we'll have
Maybe
some
dub it in.
we'll have some nice English lady dubbing.
Dub it in.
Dub it in.
No, it sounds fake the way you say it. That's-
Well, the whole thing's
Well,
fake.
Go ahead and say it then.
Are we scamming everybody here?
Yeah.
John, that was great. I think you did wonderfully on that. It's a good presentation.
Well, I mean, how else could I do it? I mean, it's
It does sound better.
I like the way you pointed out that it would be a god to somebody who had no
right,
experience.
exactly.
Something.
If you don't experience it, hey, Pat, if we walk outside tonight and this big bright light and this guy in a robe is up there, we're gonna go. Whoa.
The first thing I'll say is hologram.
Yeah, right. Exactly what I'd say. But are you done?
On the weekends when they did their public service broadcasting. And it was during those weekends I got an awful lot of religion and an awful lot of talk. But there was for me an oasis in the middle of that public service sea, or desert, called Town Hall. And I recall that I always looked forward to those broadcasts that came from here. And listening to Town Hall over the years, I am quite sure that I learned a great deal about America then. And it had a great impact on the kind of American I am now. And I hope that's some sort of a recommendation. It may not be. But I assure you that in queuing up those tapes as a young broadcaster, it never occurred to me that I might one day myself would be standing before you. And I'm honored to be here, and I thank you very much for your invitation. But I think to be here today in this place at this time is very fitting that it be done at Town Hall. By and large, many of the members of Town Hall, the movers and shakers involved in what is California. It is here in Southern California that almost everything, good or bad, has its beginning, and the rest of the world is in its wake. That's a part of the dynamics that is Southern California. So I believe it's appropriate that we come here today to Town Hall to tell you of an odyssey which started 5 years ago, and surely will involve every one of you, eventually all men everywhere. And as this involvement grows, know for a fact that the world will never again be the same. I want you to work with me for just a second to make what may be a historical moment work. I want you to try something. Abandon with me, if you will, for a moment, those trappings that we all bring into a gathering such as Town Hall. Try for these few moments to be yourselves rather than to be involved in your economic situation, your social or political commitments. Those things are a part of us all the time. For a while, simply be an individual American. Okay? For me, this odyssey started, as I said, 5 years ago. I was originally picked to host what we figured would be a bold new programming experiment at KABC Radio. Originally in the fall of 1978, after the Dodger season, it was decided to devote 2 hours, 10 to midnight, in exploring the world of spiritualism and the occult. Well, I said no. I didn't know anything about spiritualism or occult or even what it was, but they were quite emphatic, and they asked me to think about it positively. With some negotiation, we decided to make the show on a little broader base than it actually came out. To present a thorough investigating forum, facts, data, information, research into ongoing events, the personalities involved in this media presentation. Things that did not generally find themselves into the mainstream of media presentation, thus denying public access to this information. Behind that effort, the professionalism, the integrity, and the resources of KABC and the American Broadcasting Company, and they have always remained full with me. The experience was shattering. For KABC, Open Mind quickly established itself as a solid success, often generating audiences in that time period greater than the morning and afternoon drive day parts of all but 1 or 2 of the Los Angeles radio stations. And as Lynn mentioned, not only did it become the #1 rated show in its time period in Los Angeles, but also in the United States of America. And I want to quickly add that the success of Open Mind was not because of the host of the show, not at all, but it was the material, and I thought this was a dramatic reflection of a new level of information that people everywhere are hungry to have. So intense the interest, however, that KABC is now in the process of editing down over 5 years of open mind programs to make them available in cassette form. The demand for those tapes the world over is that great. The programming experiment at KABC established itself as a viable focal point, a voice of what we now see as a dramatic new age. I must confess to you that over the last 5 years, week after week, closely held belief systems gave way to a new reality. Stunning, staggering, and simmering underneath the view of the world most commonly seen by the public. There are many fascinating things I could tell you here, but I assure you that would take hours. But the most important thing for you to understand was the discovery that our research turned up of a vast, global subculture, if I can call it that. A subculture that knows no political bounds, no cultural bounds, no religious bounds. It's comprised of deeply dedicated men and women, the world over, existing in the halls of government, the nation's large corporations and small, people everywhere. They all view the machinery which makes the world work as not working as well as it should. Governments everywhere, our system of goods and services everywhere, our religions are simply not doing the job they were intended to do. Further, there is this global realization that these great and vital institutions in human life cannot really be changed now, or patched up, or made right again. In short, the establishment in all of these areas is not effectively addressing its resources and talents to making this a better world for all of its people. Indeed, it seems to be content and maintaining the status quo. The maintenance of this status quo is done by control. Control is the key word. Further, we have found that if one controls two things, they control everything. And we see that vividly demonstrated in the history of the United States. The saga of the American people and taking this primitive land and building it into America, we all know, was truly one of the most inspiring events in the pages of history. But to achieve this monumental task, the American people had two vital tools. And with those tools, they carved out this nation, and there's nothing like it on earth, even to this day. Those tools: inexpensive money and inexpensive energy. But during the course of this century, to the detriment of all of us, those tools have been taken away from all Americans. They are now the two single most expensive commodities that must be used by each and every one of us. Now, in this highly technological society, we must have energy to live and to work and to enjoy life. Likewise, in these times, we must have money, credit, to have a home, an automobile, to make a living, to be a contributing and productive member of our society, and to meet the obligations that we have to ourselves and family. Where they were tools, now expensive commodities. And after we've expended our individual wealth to provide those for ourselves, for living and survival, there is precious left to do anything, much less improve the quality of our individual lives. The greatest of these costs is energy. Nothing saps away our individual wealth more than energy. You pay an energy cost for every bite of food you eat, for every stitch of clothing that you wear, for every good and services you consume. And it doesn't take much of a mathematician to add up the hidden cost of energy and then the obvious energy cost on top of that to see how great it has become for the average family budget. It is staggering, beyond realization for most, until you begin to think about it. There are a few who, after paying the cost of energy and money simply to survive, have the sufficient wealth to go on to work, to use these vital tools to do as Americans have always done, and carve out a still greater nation, leading a way to a peaceful, productive, and tranquil world. The genius and innovation, productivity, and drive of the American people have been severely blunted by this change of events, the systematic converting of a tool to a commodity, and a very expensive one at that. As individuals, we all suffer. As a nation, we are station keeping, and that task is growing more difficult with each passing day. And this great problem here in America is being felt the world over. Make no mistake about it, we as individuals are controlled in these vital resources we must have, and that they come at a very high price. Obviously, there are those that use this control to maintain power and dominion and amass great wealth. However, for the most part, those involved in this process are themselves caught up in the web of control over the people, not out of any ominous schemes, but in the prevailing ethic of our time. As obvious as these controls are, there has been another more insidious one, the control of thought. Now, I'm not talking about a mystic or a scientist somewhere using mental or technological prowess or some authority meting out some punishment for one who thinks differently. I'm talking about the ethic of the age. We're in the midst of that struggle now, and to be aware of it is one of the reasons I'm with you. This drama is being played in many areas of human thought at this very moment. But today, I want to concentrate on just one, and that is the science of energy. We have been told that the enormous cost we must endure for energy is the way it is. To deal with it, we conserve energy, we use the sun or wind, and there's scheme upon scheme, but there is little we can do because science says there are fundamental laws of physics that cannot be violated. I suggest to you here that as long as that thought prevails, control prevails. Back to that subculture I was talking to you about. There is a cadre of dedicated scientists who simply refuse to accept that the so-called laws of physics, beautifully bound in the textbooks of our finest citadels of knowledge, were given by the lawmaker of the universe, its creator. They had an open mind and determined that there must be a better way and set about to do it. I stand before you today filled with excitement to tell you that they have done. There is now a new technology that says that we live on this planet in a sea of energy, and it surrounds us all the time. This new technology taps that sea of energy and converts it into an unlimited source of usable energy. The only cost of tapping the energy is the device that does it so well. And once you have the device, your only cost for all the energy you will ever need, for home, business, for our nation, will be in the initial cost of the device and its maintenance. Do I stand before you a very gratified man today, for germane to the development of this technology right here in Los Angeles was an open and candid exhortation, data, discussion of science on KABC, which triggered the thought in the mind of a young genius among us. He doesn't like to be called like that, but we do it. In study, trial and error, an open mind, and dedication to the welfare of his fellow man, he did bring forth the technology to tap the sea of energy and make it work. The so-called free energy device is here. It's online. It works. It has very little technological work remaining before it will be in your hands and everyone's, including that little old lady down the street on a fixed income who has to deny herself necessary energy to keep warm in the winter and cool in the summer and cook her food. At the moment, the cost of energy makes her life miserable, and the ethic of the time is that nobody cares. In a few moments, you will meet the young genius who's brought the technological wonder to us. You will see here at Town Hall, for the first time in history, a simple breadboard version of the device, and you will watch it work. And I assure you, you will be amazed. For what you are seeing, if you were to go to Caltech or any of our colleges around here, they would say, why, that can't be done. That's impossible. Baloney. But as important as the technology is, what is even more important is another effort which had its roots in the concept of that vast global subculture at work in this world. Total and free availability to energy is as much a right of the people of this planet as is their right to the air they breathe. Now, surely that thought shakes the very foundation of the existence of those who use energy for control. Well, for those whose intent is control, to have their toys taken away will pave the way for a bright, new, and productive world for all men and women of this planet, and we welcome it. For those caught up unwittingly in this web, we are looking at freedom. Those responsible for the development of this technology are literally giving it to the world. The basic scientific principles have been placed in the public domain. It is the right of the people. Those in the forefront of the development of this technology will now refine it, condense it, test it, make it extremely reliable and safe, design a compact and efficient device to be installed in every home in America and in the world. Where that's not practical, units will be designed for industry and for the utility companies and distribution systems the world over, little ones for individual appliances, and for the use of the automotive and avionics industry. The uses are limitless, bounded only by our imagination. Then a remarkable thing will happen. Something which defies the ethic of the way we now provide goods and services one for the other. Those responsible will turn to the small businessmen, the world over, who want to improve themselves in the task of providing the world with free energy, men who can manufacture, distribute, and service this amazing equipment. They will be given the plans to go ahead. In return, their only payback to those who made this possible is that they make sure that the technology is made available at the lowest possible price to everyone. Surely they're to make a profit, to be rightly rewarded for their work, but they are not to engage in the great American pastime of conveniently substituting the word profit for greed. Licensing agreements for this will be spelled out to the limits of legality, but to guarantee everyone involved works for the benefit of their middleman, those involved will also market the device, and you can rest assured it will be at the lowest possible price, pacing the market, affordable to that little old lady living on a fixed income. Those who involve themselves in this effort, there will be no royalty paid to those who brought it online. Their benefits and their profits are more profound. They will have been contributing to a bright new world for all men and everywhere. It's interesting to read some of the proposal which has already come in from our largest manufacturers. They spell out, in one case in particular that comes to mind, they included flow charts and how if they were allowed to manufacture and distribute this device around the world, that we could make billions of dollars a month. Well, if Mr. Bedini and the foundation is making billions of dollars a month, that little old lady down the street on a fixed income is not being helped one bit. But it is the ethic of big business. It is not the ethic of this global subculture of which I am. The structure, the bureaucracy, the quest for income above and beyond legitimate profits because the market will bear is antiquated, destructive, debilitating, counterproductive, and a tool used to continue the maintenance of the status quo, the control of energy, the control of the people. The large corporation was denied in preference to the resources of the common man, the hard-working, dedicated little man, if you will. Thousands of them everywhere will be employed in this most important task before us in this new age. I must tell you, however, those involved have felt the wrath of those who do not want you to have free energy, who don't really give a damn about that little old lady down the street on a fixed income, who care not about developing nations spending most of their precious wealth on energy supplies, remaining among the have-nots of the world, creating international tensions which put us on the brink of destruction and the welfare of mankind in general. They want the money derived from energy sources, they want the power, and they do not want you and me to have free access to all of the energy we want and need. In short, they care nothing about you, me, America, or the world. Well, I'm here to tell you that their time has come. We need those kind of individuals in our society like we each need a case of terminal cancer. Yet, Those involved have been threatened. Now that it's realized that the technology is real, what they see is an ominous dark cloud on the horizon forward. Not only will their energy toys be taken away, but it doesn't take too much to realize that the device itself represents but the tip of a technological iceberg, a technology which is far from their reach. They see that this subculture is systematically arming itself with men, women, who cannot be corrupted and swayed from their determination to make this world a better place for everyone. They see vast financial resources coming into place. In fact, what they see is a steamroller, a philosophically advanced, deeply endowed, technologically advanced steamroller, an army dedicated to the betterment of man. And it's coming their way, and their weapons against it just do not work. Weapons like greed, threats of violence, or violence itself, manipulation of government, money, or even the courts. Today, we're seeing the beginning of the end of that control over the lives of all of us. Despite the threats, the hints, the violence, the tapped phones, the efforts to discredit, homes and labs broken into, things and papers stolen, the die is cast. Free energy is here. It is a part of a new reality, and the battle lines are drawn even now. There are most likely some here today involved in the production and distribution of electrical energy. To you, what is offered is a blessing to you and your stockholders. As these devices penetrate the market, you will see in time a reduction in the demand curve for your energy, which will reduce the need for expensive capital formation, new nuclear plants, or fossil burning and polluting plants, and the eventual elimination of all polluting sources of electrical energy. You will have a better and more inexpensive way to provide your services. For you too, your source of energy can and will be free. All stockholders and your customers in the ecology will profit by that. There may be some here that are in the petroleum and gas industry. For you, the changing demand will be gradual, allowing more than ample time to change marketing from a society which uses your products for energy, which in turn has polluted our environment to a critical level, to a society which uses your products to make the lands fertile again, provide food, clothing, shelter, and a myriad of valuable, useful products for the enrichment of man. Demand for your products will never wane, but there are greater uses for the good of man on earth, for petroleum, than burning it for energy. For others who may require energy in their daily and personal business lives, the near elimination of energy costs will bring on a new level of life and productivity which cannot be achieved in any other fashion. Because of that, the world will flourish again, and I don't need to draw those pictures for you here. I am sure that you see them vividly. To all here, know that the task ahead is difficult, and there may be some dangers for those involved. There are those who do not want this new technology, but those responsible are persuaded that the most powerful force on earth is an aroused American public. For that force, we call upon our friends in the media, some of them here today. We know that there will be politicians and bureaucrats who will want to impose new taxes and regulations on the devices to make up for the enormous revenue losses to government this technology will bring on. Government is one of the greatest profiteers of energy cost. The business of government is not energy, but rather the well-being of the people, and they should get about that business. We know that there will be efforts of those that are the powerful, whose power is centered in energy, to sweep this technology under the table and keep it out of the hands of the people. They have done that before. They will not do that again. In this regard, I am reminded of one of the saddest chapters of our history and one of the most miserable moments in the history of capitalism. At the turn of the century, there was another man of vision and insight among us. His name was Nikola Tesla. His genius gave us the alternating current, the electric generator, the dynamo, the electromagnetic wave that we use at radio stations and television stations. The list of Tesla's accomplishments was enormous. Our society would literally fall down without his inventions. Tesla said he could and was about indeed to produce a system which would give everybody all of the energy they could ever use free. And this was at around the turn of the century. All they would need is a simple device with a ground and an antenna. Well, when J.P. Morgan who had been his financial backer, heard of this. He withdrew his support, used his influence to write him out of the history books, made free energy something impossible to patent, and later Tesla died of hunger. That story is another about Tesla. Sometime I'd like to tell it to you. We now know that Tesla was right. He could have done it. And had he been allowed, the world around the turn of the century would have had free energy. But it was the ethic of the J.P. Morgans that energy was something to sell, the distribution of energy was something to sell, and as a carrot for Washington, something to tax, and free energy disappeared. Personally, I am persuaded that this development would have brought a new quality of life to the world then, and there are compelling reasons to believe that there would have been no such thing as World War I, the Depression, World War II, and the miseries that have followed. I'm sure that Morgan did not do this out of a desire to plunge the world into further misery. He simply did it because of the ethic of his time. That event will not take place again. Any effort to deny free energy will be a detriment to you, me, America, and mankind. Those involved are prepared for this, and we are confident that the people themselves will not allow any further resistance to change. To the politicians and to the bureaucrats who attempt to thwart the introduction and the use of free energy by the people by means of unwarranted taxes and restrictions, they will be met with a full weight of judicial review by the people and in the courts of the land and in the court of public opinion. I can assure you now that those responsible here will utilize their vast resources to make the name, rank, serial number, face, address, telephone number, and other vital data about any such public service a household word in every American home, as this is the man who's working to deny you your rightful access to free and abundant industry or energy, and what are you going to do about him, America? And for those in the private sector who might attempt in some way to affect the same thing by attempting to buy and vary, by imposing unconscionable profits or other means, expect the full resources of those involved to bring similar public attention to your enterprise and feel the wrath of the American people. But all this need not be. We've moved into a new age, a new level of technology which has brought on new demands of the human spirit and genius. Rather than fight change, which would vastly improve the quality of life for all mankind, get behind it. Join the cause. Demand of government, business, finance, their total cooperation in getting this technology into the mainstream of American life, working in every possible way to effectively bring it into being, and at the lowest cost. Demand of academia, they realize that they have been closed-minded in the development of this new science, and others this science leads to, and get busy building a new science, a pristine one, rather than providing a science and technology which often is built upon the garbage of science rather than the true one. To our friends in the media, your role, as it is in the preservation of our republic, is vital. Your genius and abilities are needed to keep those forces which may want to stifle this technology at bay. I feel confident that your craft and expertise will be adroitly applied, and being that ever watchful watchdog on the affairs of our land, equally concerned as we all are that this technology prevail quickly, unimpeded with some of the levels of resistance which might be arrayed against it if it is void of the public forum. This new technology does underscore an old saying as never before, that being the survival of the fittest. But as our ethic conveniently substituted the meaning of the words profit and greed, so has the meaning of the word fittest been changed. It used to be the one who was the strongest, the most shrewd, the most cunning, the most devious, a whole list of marvelous human attributes. It no longer means that. The fittest means the one who serves mankind the most. Hopefully, all of us here will quickly move into the vanguard of a new generation of Americans who are indeed the fittest. Now I'm very proud to introduce to you a young man who made this happen for us here today. It should be pointed out that He's not the only one. There are others who have produced such a device that works, produces more energy than it uses. So the technology cannot be stopped. It's going on all over the world. However, his genius, I feel, will change the way the world works. His decision to make this outgrowth of insight a gift to mankind speaks for himself. Words really do not say it. And presenting to you Mr. John C. Bedini. John. John will show you a crude but effective prototype of the future. John is one of the first involved in one of the most exciting events of our time, I feel, the formation of a non-profit StarTech Foundation. Its purpose is the research and development of new levels of technology undreamed by many, felt to be impossible by most. But it is not. It's well for you to know, the men and women of StarTech, your guides to a world and worlds unknown. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank Town Hall today for inviting me here today. And what I want to do is not get into anything technical with the machine, but explain to you in simple principles how the machine operates. There, I think we can take the camera on there. See, I think it's here. What we have is a bank of storage batteries down there that are from World War II. It is impossible to charge those batteries with a conventional charger because this type of machinery does not allow that, because the energy which it is using actually changes these batteries to a different form. The machine the reason that we have the motor here is to give you the illusion that we have to have something to spin this machine. In the end, this machine does not need this motor, and it does run itself. This is a very crude machine. The wire going to the load is about as thin as your hair. Therefore, a baby could operate this kind of power without getting electrocuted. I will short out the machine so that you can see it accelerate. But the main points of this machine are that this is what they call a gravity stress converter. And what I mean by that is there are gravity fields surrounding the Earth. They hold you here. What we do is tap a little bit about that and convert it into usable electrical energy. At the same time, if you see 600 watts up here, there's 600 watts in this machine down here in the iron bars to drive it forward past the motor. The motor is there as a stabilizer unit. That's what we're going to use it for. If I disconnect the load from this machinery, you will see that the motor cannot even turn this machinery. So it's up to your imagination after that to figure out what is turning that motor. And I'll get started here. First, though, I want to introduce Steve here, who put this machine together. This is Steve's work. And if you would please, after the demonstration of the machine, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions within a reasonable limit. Don't ask me to tear the machine apart here in front of you. I will, however, go into a little bit more technical explanation than what I'm able to do here right now. But the main thing is I want you to see it run, I want you to see it accelerate. I will disconnect the load from the machine. You will see that your wall current will not turn the machine. Here's Steve.
Also, we'll let you know it makes a little bit of noise because it's a primitive one of our setups on this machine. And it will make some little noise. The one in the hand, right? Okay. But this machine, he'll get short. Now, you know with AC current, he'll get short, he'll start the wire with fire. We all know it's working on short wires, right? We also will get, when we get short this, you'll see it, the machine will run faster. If you had a generator, conventional generator from outside, we use every day in commercial use, we get short, we'd have a big fire, but the machine would slow down. This does everything the opposite. So John, we're going to do the demonstration now or what?
Yeah, one thing I want to explain here is I'm not going after brilliancy today. What I'm going after is look. I want to simulate a standard heater that would be found in somebody's home that uses electrical energy. Now this motor is a 1/3 horsepower General Electric motor, Westinghouse motor, excuse me. It draws only 5 amps from the wall. It's found on every blower squirrel cage system that you use for air conditioning and heating. This isn't even a capacitor run motor. It's only 1/3 horsepower. There's no way possible that this motor can turn this machine, and what I want to do is demonstrate that for you right off here. Now we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, we're going to start it up, and I'm going to need Steve here to hold it. And then later on I'll come back and answer any questions if you have. As I screw in the light bulbs, these will dim down, but the wire will never burn up. What will happen here is the generator itself will start to pull the motor. And when that happens, it's running for free from the wall. And then I'll disconnect the load, and I'll show you that this motor that comes out of this wall will not drive the machine. Measurements are kind of misleading sometimes. Me, myself, I've had 11 years of conventional engineering. I believe what the textbook says. until one night when I saw that this machine was actually possible. Now, this is a very crude prototype. The motor which is powering this machine has to be there for everybody to accept reality. However, this type of machine does not need this motor. Generators can be built to where these batteries go for years and years and years. Here. It is impossible to charge this battery off a battery charger. You'll burn it up. But yet the machine puts the energy back into the battery. As I stated earlier, these are World War II batteries. There's not even sulfuric acid in the battery. We make a special electrolyte and put it in that battery so it can carry that kind of current.
Yeah. It's 1:30. I know you're fascinated, but I know the rules of the game here are to take a little break right now for those that feel like you need to leave. And John and Steve, myself, will be here for as long as those who want to talk to us about it can. Is that a fascinating demonstration here for you? I think it can be said that you have seen one of the first, the historical moment. Thank you very much. Routinely, I moderate the question period myself, but I'm afraid I wouldn't understand your question, so I'm going to ask you this right guy. All right, well, thank you very much. Let us start with the questions. I guess, Jim Townsend.
I have a question. I come from Anaheim, and we're involved in energy and generation, and we're on the hook for about $1 billion in the next 35 years. What's it going to do to our utility?
What will this do to the utility companies? Well, first of all, I think it'll put an end to their need as these things get into the marketplace, as I mentioned in the talk. I wanted to know what this will do to the utility companies. We feel very strongly that it will stop the need for capital formation or begin to decrease that. This is going to be a gradual process as this moves into the mainstream. And certainly these devices themselves can be built of such a size to adequately take care of the utility companies as well. We see no reason to dismantle the great power grids we have in the country.
Energy on its own. Why do we need batteries? Why do you need money from the world? I wonder if you can explain it once again exactly what is happening.
Okay. First of all, the reason that that plug is in the wall is, like we explained earlier, this is a very crude prototype of this type of machinery. You see, the motor itself being plugged into your wall cannot turn that machine. That machine has to resonate and turn through its own load. You follow what I'm saying? In other words, once we start the machine's on its own. That is a dead magnetic lock. If Steve turns on, the reason for the batteries is you're not getting any energy unless you supply some field to get that energy from. What we are doing with that magnetic field is making the gravitational energy get trapped. This type of generator, when the rotors come up forward, then you get your energy, not when they cut the magnetic lines of force. In other words, this is charged through that magnetic field, and as it comes up, it discharges into one heck of a pulse. And that pulse at the same time goes back to the batteries that are supplying the energy to supply the field current. So therefore you're getting that for nothing, and you're getting the rotational speed for nothing. You're getting the acceleration. Under dead short, do you think that you could plug an extension cord into your wall and not stall your gasoline engines? If you short your alternator out on your car while it's idling, your engine is stopping dead. Mine is speeding up. No, first of all, you see, this is the question that's asked most of the time, perpetual motion. I don't think anybody understands the term perpetual motion. Perpetual motion is where you're standing right now, because me and you are going to be dead before the earth ever stops. This machine is going to have the kind of maintenance you would give your automobile. That's like saying, well, I never have to put oil in my car again. Okay, so the term perpetual motion is the wrong term here. This is not a perpetual machine. We're not making that claim. What we're saying is we are getting a reduced energy cost from this machine. We're putting in very little and we're getting a lot out.
You have 10,000 hours of life.
Do you have 10,000 hours of life? What is the life?
Steve, how long has this machine been running? This machine has been demonstrated and left on for 2 or 3 months. You can see that it's very crudely put together. The tolerances aren't even, let's put it this way, the gaps on these rotors, you can stick a ruler in between, and there has been no problem. First of all, there's no laminations in this machine. It's typically iron rotating bars and brass bars. There are no eddy currents whatsoever in this machine. There's nothing to heat up. The only thing that could possibly heat up is the illusion that we call a motor there. That would break down before the generator. We can run this generator under dead short without any failure. We've done it. Once you break even, which is 100% above the motor, we're not saying 98%, we're saying 100%. Once you do that, the motor, the amps input to the motor starts to reduce itself on a square law principle. In other words, the first bulb that you screw in, which would be a 100-watt bulb past the 600-watt rating, give or take a few watts, will reduce that from 5.5 amps input down to 3.5 amps. That means now the machine's dragging the motor around. Okay? The minute you dead short that, it's as if you plug the motor into the wall and just let it with no load on it. You're not burning any energy. You have to put a load on something to burn energy outside of its normal draw.
It seems to me, I'm sure you consider this yourself.
But yes, you can take the input, put it back into the output. That machine has already been made. As far as the environmental aspect of this, you couldn't steal enough energy from this universe to hurt a fly. Okay? It's being wasted every day. You call it radiation. I call it a breakdown in your atmosphere.
Do you have an organization who wants to know more about how you made, how you did that together?
Reference was made to your foundation. Would you tell us something of it, please?
It's the foundation is a group of people which know this type technology and have been using it now. Some are powering their own homes. However, the financial assistance right at this point in time hasn't really been there. In other words, it's building up right now. It's just a matter of time. It might be a year or so before these type machines will become common use, like your washing machine in your own home.
What will they cost?
Cost factor. Let's say this little old lady down the street in Pasadena, wherever she happens to be. What would it cost her?
It would cost her about $500. One load of coal.
Another question? Yes, right there.
John, I've read some of your papers, and I'm unclear whether you're capturing this field, the energy field, with your magnetics, or whether you're doing it in the storage batteries. Can you elaborate on that?
How are you tapping into this energy field? Through your storage batteries or through magnetics?
Steve will point out as I say this, if you gentlemen can just stand over a little bit over to the side there. What Steve's about to point out here is something that's very unique. You see, to capture the gravity stress field as we know it in this type of generator, you must produce what we call 2 figure-8 patterns. One in the forward direction, one in the backward direction. Now, what this is when Steve throws that switch, all the batteries are doing here is making what we call a dead magnetic short or a complete circuit for the magnetic lines of flux to go through. In other words, no flux can leak in the machine. Steve will show you that. You see, he can't even break it loose from the poles. All right? Now what happens here is when this machine, after you get it running and you put the correct load on the machine, depending on what the generator is built for, what happens here is you get a magnetic lock, and then what will happen is, as it sees the load, those magnets on the rotor become bigger magnets. And the bigger pole overtakes the smaller pole, and the release of that pole is energy, and we call that tachyon capture, or stressing the gravity stress wave of the Earth. By the way, this frequency is a very low frequency coming out of the machine. Me and Steve have deliberately put a 3,600 RPM motor on there. What I will demonstrate for you in a minute is it's non-speed dependent. The minute the motor stops, the lights go up. Not the minute you slow down, the lights go up.
Now, we heard a high-pitched noise, and I just been wondering what that was. You probably explain that. What is the high-pitched noise?
I'm not sure it's the generator. What would we call it?
It's a generator. It's just a...
When the generator starts up, we hear a high-pitched noise. What's the source of that noise?
Okay, Steve has his theory on that, and I have mine on that, so I'll give you both. I say that when it comes out of the magnetic lock, you hear a crack. That's a high-pitched noise. When you hear that crack, that particular sounds almost like a fly swatter hitting a piece of metal, right?
Now, are you talking about 2 poles there?
Right. We're talking about all 4 poles there. When that comes out of that lock, what happens is if Steve will hold that pole 90 degrees from the Earth's surface that you're standing on, move that pole 90 degrees up, Steve. When that pole is right in that position is where you get your energy. That's impossible, because if Steve moves that pole into the magnetics, it should be getting its energy as it cuts the magnetic lines of force. That's very untrue with this type of energy. What you do is stress the magnetic field, the rebound action is your energy, and you get that for nothing.
Now, that's passing by the horizontal red bars, and that's where you're hearing the noise.
No, you are hearing the noise the minute it comes loose of that. That's the magnetic crack that you're hearing.
Maybe it's friction noise.
Right, exactly.
Have we another question?
What is the ultimate source of the energy that you must be here? The universe that you're going to modify?
In lay terms, what is this force you were tapping into?
We're just using the energy of the gravity. That's all we're doing. We're just cutting the Earth's magnetic field the way an ELF tuner or something would go through and find all the geomagnetic zones. In other words, the Earth is a very powerful generator. The energy's been here for years. It's just you have to devise a means to capture that energy. Now that is a dead zero energy because, as the question was brought up earlier, how can you transmit the energy through such thin wire? There's a very good reason for that. The reason that you can't measure the energy is because there is no energy in the wires. You see, it's 2 zero waves, what I call a zero wave. They mean nothing. They're absolute zeros until they couple into a load. Then you see what you call energy, which is light. You can only relate to light, heat, that's energy. Okay, so the idea here is to make a machine which takes the gravity stress, converts it into a non-zero energy, and then put it over here into the light bulbs and form an electromagnetic wave, which you call energy.
What we were handling stars,
area between two planets, between two stars, where the gravity is almost null, would it work?
Well, it's effectively non-existent for most of our technology.
First of all, this is a zero-point energy machine, and the higher you get it off the ground, the more it'll put up. All right? You see, what's limiting this machine right now is the Earth is grounding it out. This is a very high frequency energy that you are converting here. Okay? You measure it in the form of very low waves, but it's actually beyond the speed of light. Okay? It's 27, maybe 100 times beyond the speed of light. The computers don't have enough numbers to register this out. We haven't made anything like that ever. You see, this is what's known, you can term this as a tachyon type converter. In other words, what you're dealing with here is a machine which converts radiation into energy. It sucks it up like a sponge sucks up water.
Let me go back to your last answer. Did I really hear you say it exceeds the speed of light?
Yes, I did. I'll say that it exceeds the light 27 times. And come in the future, you'll find out you can exceed the light speed. First of all, we're going higher in frequencies. This machine's working already past your highest frequency. To capture it, it's doing it with iron bars. That's theoretically impossible. Okay? I've had 11 years conventional engineering, so I know what I'm saying to you. We're working at a low frequency wave, which carries the waves far beyond the speed of light.
Question is that over there where a crowd in a steel pipe magnetically isolated and where's steel still flowing?
If it were magnetically isolated, not gravitational, but magnetically isolated,
In the Earth's field.
in a Hertz field. Hertz.
Yes. You see, the low frequency gravitational waves or any low frequencies which we determine are too low to measure actually have real high magnitudes. And if you go to the textbooks, you will find out low frequencies travel through Faraday cages, they travel through iron pipes, they travel through solid rock, and yet you have the same amount of energy in the end that you started out with, providing that the phasing on the transmitter is detected correctly.
I wonder, does it have to work in a resistive load, or can you drive a motor with an inductive motor? Does it have to be a resistive load?
Must work in the resistive motor. Can you drive a motor with it?
No, you can drive a lot of motors with this. You can take and, as long as the motor has the same number of poles as the generator, you can drive any kind of induction motor you want, capacitor, starter, whatever. There are 3 or 4 of these machines running throughout the country that are driving 2 and 3 horsepower induction motors. Okay, but it doesn't look like this. This is a very crude prototype just to demonstrate the principle to you of acceleration forward under load. You see, what happens is we want to reduce the cost of energy and get the 1,000 watts out. In other words, we want to beat that figure that our scientists tell us that we can't do. The word can't do does not exist to me.
Is your technology related in any way to Tesla's concept?
Is your technology related to the concept that was referred to that Tesla came up with?
This technology is by no means new. This technology is based upon Tesla, T. Henry Moray, the actual physics of Thomas E. Bearden, and many others, Lindsay and a number of others, which they applied for patents and it was denied them, and the information in the end was buried. You are looking at the one surviving machine right now in a crude prototype form. There are other machines throughout the country. I would say there are 50, maybe 75 people right now who have all the answers for the technology besides myself.
I have to sneak this one in, I'm sorry. Is the patent position such that you are able to protect yourself and be able to give this away as was described earlier?
Yes, this little advancement right here is free for the taking. It was written up. What we tried to do was explain these certain ways to people who bought the books. In other words, we wanted them to take a look at 2 ways that were out of phase to make 0.
Yes, you mentioned before that you have 11 years of conventional engineering. Could you tell us what your academic and work background is in conventional engineering?
You were not introduced formally. Would you introduce yourself? Would you give us your academic and your business background, please?
Okay, I was trained by Bell and Hall Industries through correspondence. In other words, I was in Vietnam at the time, and the only way I could get my education was to take it through correspondence. So I do hold a degree from Bell and Howell in electronics engineering design. I also hold a degree in microwave electronics from the U.S. Army Technical Schools. I have 11 years in the audio power amplifier field in the design of special amplifiers of low frequency and medium range frequencies, and my present company builds stereo power amplifiers for the audio community.
Yes, John, can you tell us the difference between your motor and Thomas Newman's, who you're familiar with is, and which you think is more likely to do the job of giving us free energy?
Are you familiar with Thomas Newman's motor? And if you are, can you compare it to yours? And which is more likely to give us some free energy?
Okay, John.
Well, I will only answer that question one way. This is a trick question. First of all, the 2 motors are not the same. Second of all, Joe Newman probably is he's the second. He actually was first before this with his rotating magnetic field, and his principle is completely different than what this principle is here. His motor, however, produces torque. This one produces electrical energy. Okay? His runs itself. They are both identical, both tapping the same fields. Okay? So there really is no difference as far as his machine looks different than this machine. They both function the same.
One final question for someone who hasn't had a question yet. Yes, sir.
Has this system been tested by an independent agency, and if so, are the reports available?
Has this system been tested by an independent agency, and if so, are the reports available?
Well, this system, this particular type of generator has been tested many times in the past. The information has been varied. This particular type of generator that me and Steve have been studying and worked out some of the design problems with it was done 20 years ago in Germany. It was called the Kromreya converter. A German invented this type of machine. However, if you go to pull the information on this machine, no such information ever exists.